Hello, my lovely book friends, and welcome back to my channel. So I know you guys see the title and you guys know what the date of today is. Yes, it has taken me a very long time to sit down and do my January wrap up. I mean, literally February came in and it was like a freight train towards me. Like I was not ready for February to begin. However, since we're on the topic of February, happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. Because in every lifetime, this is what I would choose. Happy Black History Month. All right, so I'm not gonna hold y'all long because quite evidently I've already held y'all long enough. Like I have not done this in a timely manner. So we're going to just quickly jump into January wrap up plus February TBR. As per usual, Storygraph. That is the only app I use. I know there's a lot of popular ones out there. Me personally, I don't feel like keeping up with a whole lot of stuff. So Storygraph has been what I use. It's my tried, it's my true. It also is woman owned and it is Black owned if you're looking for something that more aligns with you. If that is something you're interested in, just for context, it is Black owned. I love it. There's a free version, there's a paid version. I personally use the free version and the features on it are good enough for me. So y'all know my spiel about Storygraph. I do this all the time. As per usual, I'll give you guys my ratings, my thoughts. You'll probably see some notes all over the screen per book. And we're just gonna go ahead and jump straight in. So the first book I read in January was called The Story Keeper, and it was actually an ARC. So I actually listened to this. I did not have the physical, nor did I have the Kindle version of it. Literally, all I had was the audiobook ARC of it. And I enjoyed this book. This was my very first finish of 2026, and I rated it a 4.75 star, which is pretty good starting off the bat. This book is detailing the story of a girl named Fiona, and Fiona is returning to a house that she grew up in. It's her uncle's house. Her uncle recently passed away. And as she is trying to prepare the house to live in it, figure out what she needs to do with all the possessions and things, you guys know how it goes when you're trying to wrap things up after a loved one has passed, right? It's a lot, it's an ordeal. So she's going through the house and her mom and her have had a bit of a tense relationship, but her mom is urging her to like be very careful what she's moving around the house. And she's urging her to basically keep the house as it is, which is weird to Fiona because it's like, well, why? If I'm living here, maybe I should change it up a little bit, pack up my uncle's things, maybe donate some stuff, you feel me? So her mom is like really urging her to not, and Fiona does not understand. Fast forward, she comes across this book called The Midnight Estates. And it's a book that she starts reading just because she's like, a book, let me just read it. Like, why not? Like, I ain't got much else to do here. But what she realizes is this book is very similar to her own life in very weird ways, right? But the parallels are just too uncanny for her to sit there and assume it's a coincidence, basically. So as she's reading this book more and more, she's starting to realize, wait, no, this might actually be about my family. Her mom's starting to get really, really agitated, and it's just like Fiona's starting to get to a point where she's not even sure what's real and what's true anymore, both in her actual reality and in the book, because the two are starting to get so blurred, so bad, so quickly. So to leave you on a cliffhanger, Fiona learns a lot in this book. And it really does challenge her own understanding of what she knows as reality. And it's really cool. It's a really deep book. It's got a lot to it that I think would make it a very enjoyable read for many people. What I loved about this book, me personally, is that it really takes the time to address that part of grief that we often don't talk about, like that immediate having to transition from this person living here to not. And, that means going through their belongings and trying to make sense of your new reality, but also you're like learning things along the way that you may have not known because now you're literally digging through this person's possessions, basically. So I think that was a really interesting take on, just the grief of losing a loved one. What I really loved about this book was the fact that we got to read the book with Fiona, right? So like there's chapters where you obviously know you're with Fiona, like while she's working through the house, talking to her mom, things like that. But then when she gets back home, like from the end of the day, and she picks up the book to read it, we are reading the chapters of The Midnight Estate with Fiona. So I really like that we're reading the book inside the book with Fiona so that we too, as readers, are starting to get confused, but in a good way of like, oh my God, wait, hold up. Like, where are we? Like, we're almost right with Fiona trying to make sense of this mysterious book that's in this house and the things she's unpacking about her family via packing up her uncle's belongings. I love books like that. I love when there's multiple I love when there's a lot of parallels in a book, whether it's multiple POVs, multiple timelines. Like, I love when books do multi-layered things, is what I've come to really, really realize about myself a lot last year. Like, that's something that really draws me in. I would call this book, on Storygraph, it is called a historical fiction. I think it is kind of historical fiction-y. Debatable. I think because I read so much historical fiction, I'm calling it debatable, but it was super good overall. If you need something fast paced, this is not going to be your book. It is more medium paced. It's very emotional. It's reflective. It's got a lot of themes of family relationships, heartbreak, betrayal, second chances, grief. Like, it's got a lot of that in it, but it's done in a really beautiful, sentimental, heartwarming way. This would have been a really good book to have read while we were snowed in a couple of weeks ago, though we didn't get no snow. But it would have been a really good book because it's got that coziness to it. You know, though there is a lot of heaviness. Well, let me not say a lot, but there's some heaviness to the book. It is cozy enough where this would have been a good curl up on the couch and read it during the weekend type of a read. So I did actually read this in like 48 hours or less. Again, I only had the audiobook available for my ARC, so I listened to it in 2 times speed, so I did get it done pretty quickly. However, I probably would have finished it even sooner, to be quite honest, if I had an actual book to go with it. But yeah, it was a great book. It was a really, really good start to 2026. Like, it was fantastic. Second book that I read was Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. This book I rated a 4.75 stars. Man, I don't know what I was on in the beginning of the year, but I was just really feeling the reflection. I was really feeling the heartfelt. Maybe it's because, you know, it was a new year and I was just feeling reflective. I don't know, to be honest. And y'all know I'm a mood reader, so it's not like I planned this. This was literally what I was in the mood to read, y'all. So I read Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. Now, I have talked to some people that have read this book and they did not enjoy it. And I've talked to people that have read this book and have kind of enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I will say what I think, before we get into the actual book, what I think is the case with this book, and I'm saying this more as a disclaimer, is that Jesmyn Ward forces you to slow down and think. If you're not in the mood to do that, I think that's where her books are not as enjoyable as they could be for the average reader, because she's really making you sit. She's really making you sit with it. Like, really, she's making you sit with your thoughts, your opinions, your feelings. You're having to sit with the characters. You're sitting with the plot. You really feel the timeline that she is trying to portray. So, for example, to backtrack, when I read Let Us Descend by her last year, I think it was February of last year, I do believe. When I read that book, it was, gosh, that was so slow. And not necessarily the story was slow, but she forces the pages to be read in such a way where even if you're listening to it at 2 times speed like myself, that is a slow moving book. And she did that on purpose because you're not going to truly understand the emotionality of the slave's journey unless you really understand that they had to travel on foot. And in order to really feel that pain on a very deep level, you need to understand that they are going by foot. That means it took forever to get from one state to another by foot. Okay, like, no, not by car, by foot. And you're chained, right? Hands, feet, you're chained. So you can only go as far as the person in front and behind you. And if someone passes out, drops, now you're slowed down because you have to drag an entire human's body weight with you. So what I appreciate about Jesmyn Ward is she makes you stop for just a second and say, if you're gonna read this, it's going to be accurate. You're going to actually feel it. You're going to feel it. And I think that's something that she does really, really well. That when you're trying to read something enjoyable, you're not gonna like, but if you're really reading it to read the content and understand where she's coming from and be open-minded, you will enjoy it, I feel like. So same case with Men We Reaped. Men We Reaped was a very heavy book. It's very sad, and just being very honest with y'all. It's extremely sad. It's non-fic. It's super reflective. It is medium and slower pace. The whole premise of this book is to talk about 5 young men, including her brother, that Jesmyn herself has lost in her lifetime. And she gives you this beautiful portrayal of where she came from, her family, the dynamics of these young men to one another, the normalcy of drugs, you know, the abuse of drugs, the abuse of alcohol, the abuse of so many different things, right? And it's coming from a place of, these men are, just victims of the system and coping, and it's a lot. But it's sad, but she makes you stop for a minute and really sit with her and understand what she grew up with and what she had to deal with. And I think there's something really beautiful about her ability to slow a reader down and sit with her and actually read at the correct pace. Again, I read and listened to this one, both audio, and I had this one on my Libby app. I do plan on getting the physical copy of this book, but it had been sitting in my Libby, and yeah, so I had plenty of time to finish it. But I also had the audiobook. So again, I was just in the mood to read it. I read it 2x speed as per usual. I finished this one January 5th. Mind you, I finished The Story Keeper January 3rd. So that tells you I finished it relatively fast. But even with that, like I said, with Let Us Descend, Jesmyn Ward just has this ability to force you to sit and slow down. And I think this book is a hard read, a necessary read. I would challenge one to read it for Black History Month even. It is a look at her life, but it's a reflection of so many people's lives, especially in the Deep South, right? Especially in the Deep South, of just how unfortunate our Black men are taken from us, and in what ways, right? To violence, to drugs, to undiagnosed mental health problems, undiagnosed medical, physical problems. And it is just so sad. And the fact that, like, when you read the description of the book, it literally talks about how we're going to explore the deaths of 5 young men dear to her and the risk of being a Black man in the rural South. Like, that is a very real reality for a lot of people. And so it does make it harder because it's not like it's too far off for a lot of people, right? But also it is a beautiful way to honor these men. Like I said, one of them is her brother. And I'm a fan of Jesmyn Ward. This is now my 3rd or 4th Jesmyn Ward book. I do plan on reading whatever she puts out because I do think that she is such a talented author. I do think you need to give yourself time and space to really understand her and read. When you read her books, to understand where she's coming from and to be in the headspace for it. But I do think it's worth a read. Like, it was an absolutely fantastic book, truly. Okay, so then we move straight away from the sad, reflective start to the year, and then we get into Kendrick by Octavia Butler. Now, this is a classic, okay? This is such a literary classic. This is a Black literary classic. And yes, I know, I never read Kendrick. I know. Everyone was like, you ain't read Kendrick? No, I had not, okay? Like, I know I'm late to the party. I'm real late. I'm so sorry. But I'm here now, and I'm here to stay. Octavia Butler is a genius. Now, I already knew this prior to reading the book. Like, I have enough of a backdrop of what she writes, who she is, and so forth, to know that once I got a chance to sit down and read it, I was going to be locked in with Miss Octavia, okay? And I am. I rated this book a 4.5 star. Now, some of y'all may know what Kendrick is because, again, like I said, it's a literary classic, especially in Black literature. But just to give you an overview, this book talks about a young lady by the name of Dana. And Dana has this connection to a young white boy all the way back in antebellum South in the slave times. And whenever he's in trouble, she is literally sent from her modern day timeline back to the past to rescue, what's the boy's name? Rufus. She gets sent back in time to rescue little Rufus, okay? And so this book talks through modern day Dana, right? So, like, we see her in her modern day era, and then she gets snatched up in the middle of, like, whatever she's doing in that moment, and she figures out that that's what's happening. So she stays prepared for whenever Rufus might send her back to help him. And so when she goes back in the past timeline, time moves at a different pace than it does in the present day timeline. So as the book progresses, Rufus is growing up from this small child into a grown adult, and he's still needing Dana's help. But then it gets to a point where this is the antebellum South, right? We are in antebellum South. And Dana is a Black woman. So when she's in the past, she is a slave. Now, she is treated a lot better than the other slaves because of her connection to Rufus. And Rufus makes it clear that, like, no, Dana's my friend. Yes, she's Black. Yes, she's a woman. Yes, she's a slave, but she's my friend. She saves me. No one understands how Dana can come and go. Nobody gets it in Annabelle and South in that past time. They don't understand how she's able to just appear and disappear. They like kind of get it, but they don't, right? Because like time travel, be so for real, right? You and I would have done the same thing. Let's just keep it a buck. And so that is why she gets off easier than some of the slaves, because she's Rufus's friend. Rufus being the son of the slave master of the plantation. However, as Rufus is getting older, he's starting to really get into that whiteness, right? Like he's starting to act more and more like his daddy, because he is his daddy's son at the end of the day, right? And it gets to a point where those learned behaviors are starting to really show themselves in Rufus. And it gets to a point where Dana realizes, though Rufus still relies on her, it's getting to a point where her life is getting more and more at risk, the more she has to keep going back in time to help Rufus, because Rufus is getting older and he's starting to take advantage of the fact that he has Dana, and he's starting to treat her like the way white men were treating black slave women back in that time. Without having to go into it, you get where I'm going with this. So Dana has to make a decision about how to stop and how to be able to stay in her present timeline. And so that's the journey that we're on, is we're getting to a point where she's like, how do I escape? Now, in one way you can be like, well, she's a modern day woman. She technically has escaped. Well, if she keeps getting sent back to the past, has she really ever escaped? So this story details that, and it is really good. Like there's some parts where it's real dark. There's some parts where it's really tense. Like there were moments where I literally stayed up all night because I was like, I need to know what happens with Dana. Okay, I need to know. But it's so good. Octavia Butler was well ahead of her time when she wrote this book. But man, I can't believe it took me this long to read Kindred. Like that was such a good book. So the reason I rated this a 4.5, because I know I'm raving about it, and I know I rated it lower than the other two books, only because Rufus got under my skin towards the end of the book. And let me just say, I understand that's the premise of the whole book, okay? Like I get it. However, it just got to a point where I was like, I have to finish this book. I want to finish this book. I'm into the book, but dang it, Rufus, like I'm so sick of you. I'm sick of you. Like I'm sick of hearing that you're on, like you're talking to, like I'm tired, Rufus, I'm tired of hearing you talk to Dana. I'm tired. Leave her alone, bro. Leave her alone. And there are moments where like you really feel for Rufus low key for a split second, especially when he's like a small child, because he's just a small child. He doesn't understand, right? Like he's picking up the behaviors that he sees. He doesn't have rationale behind it. He's a child, right? But then once he really actually stands 10 toes on them learned behaviors, the older he gets, it's just like, now wait. Rufus, Dana has been holding it down for you all these years. Be so for real. So that was really it. Honestly, it was just the fact that I got so entrenched in the book that I got so mad at Rufus that I was like, this is a 4.5. But that has nothing to do with the writing. This is literally because of my experience with the book itself. And it was just, it was fantastic. That was such a good book. Okay, so moving on, I read The Secret Garden by Frances Burnett. Now, yes, this is a child's book. Let me explain. Oh, and yes, I did rate it a 5-star. Does it count? Yes, it's going to count. The reason why I read this book, I have read this book a million times as a child, okay? Like, I loved The Secret Garden so much when I was a small child. Like, I reread this book hundreds. I mean, like, I genuinely can't even count how many times I read that book as a little kid. I loved this book so much. And, you know, I just was feeling so nostalgic, and I was just like, I kind of want to read some of the literary classics from my childhood and just reread them as an adult and see what I pull from them. You know, that's just something I was interested in doing. So I borrowed The Secret Garden from Hoopla. If you don't have Hoopla, you can get Hoopla with your library card through your library system. It's not as reliable as, you know, your Libby, and, you know, Libby can be a little hit or miss sometimes, but I have Hoopla, child. So I did that as one of my January borrows, and that just did my heart so good to read this book. I think most people probably know what The Secret Garden is about. It's about this little girl. Her parents have passed away. She has to go to her next kin, who is, I think, her uncle or something like that. Anyways, she's left alone in this big old house, right? She's just this prickly little girl who just can't get along with nobody, just a terror, okay? And she finds this secret garden and she starts to play in it and just have fun. And you just start to slowly see the change in the child's behavior as she's engaging in this garden. And then she meets this young boy who also lives in the house, who's tucked away, and she figures out a way to get him outside because he's wheelchair bound and so forth, and can't really walk very well and all these things. And so she helps him, get outside so he can also explore the garden, and the two just build this beautiful friendship. Come to find out they're cousins. And it's about their little journey of growing this garden. And as the garden grows, their hearts grow, their friendship grows, their belief in each other grows, and just their confidence in themselves and in the people around them and in the world around them grows. Like they have come from worlds where even as children, they're pretty cynical and pretty distrusting, but they start to learn why there's still beauty in the world and why they should still have hope. And, in this day and time, that was just a really refreshing read. Like I really needed that. Like, I don't know. I think the nostalgia of it, but just rereading it as an adult and seeing it from an adult's POV, I was just like, wow, this was full of hope. Like it was just a book full of hope and redemption and strength and courage. And I just needed that right now. So I just think it was just such a cute reread. So I obviously gave it a 5-star. And yeah, that was that on that. So moving on from The Secret Garden, I ended up reading The Collector of Burned Books, which is a fabulous read. I gave this one a 4-star. This one is a historical fic. It was my first fully truly true historical fic of the year. And it was so good. So I planned on doing a reading vlog for this. I had planned to do that. And for some reason, when I was editing it, files were missing. I don't know. That's been happening several times lately. So I need to figure out how that is not going to continuously be a problem, but that's neither here nor there, child. The point is, I read this book, finished it the same day. It was fantastic. I had the Kindle version and I had the audiobook as well. This was also another January download from Hoopla. And at the same time, I was able to get it on Kindle. So I was able to read and listen to it. Now, particularly for this reading vlog, that morning I had a lot of cleaning to do. So I had my headphones in. I was listening to it to get a feel of it, see where we were going with the plot. And then I was taking breaks throughout the day. I would sit with my Kindle and headphones and just read. And I literally finished it like that day. And I think it helped that I had to wake up really early that particular morning to clean, which again, it was all like content at one point. But yeah, I started that book at 5 or 6 in the morning and I was done by 2, I think. Honestly, I really did finish it that same day. But anyways, this book was good. So this has romance in it. It's a historical fic. It's definitely not fast paced at all. It's more medium paced. It definitely has some heartbreaks, some heartwarming moments, some redemptive moments, it had it all, it had it all. This would be a really good movie, in my opinion, if it's not already. I don't think this is a movie anywhere. I feel like everything's either a movie or a limited series now. I don't ever know. But this would be a good movie if it were to be. Anyways, this is a World War II fiction, historical fic. So if you love World War II fic, historical fic, I don't know why I keep saying World War II fic, you would like this book a lot. So this book it features 2 main characters. We have our main female character and our main male character. And our main female character, she is, backdrop, by the way, this is in Paris for context. Corinne is our main female character, and the guy's name, what was that guy's name? I think it was Christian. Oh, it was Christian. Anyways, Corinne, this was a lot. Okay, so follow me here. Let's start with Christian instead. So Christian is German, okay? But he did not want anything to do with the Nazi party. He did not want to work for them. He did not want to be anything affiliated with them. He is simply cosplaying as part of the Nazi party. However, he's just a professor. In fact, he literally is just a professor, okay? However, he decided that would be the best way to protect his family, to join the Nazi party. And it would help keep his family under wraps because nobody would consider harming him if they thought his family, was also part of the Nazi Party. Anyways, that's why he did that, okay? He thought it was a better way to protect his family than trying to continuously hide, run, flee. Also, his goal was to not only protect his family, but the books that are very contradictory to what the Nazi beliefs were. Obviously, we know in that time period, they were trying to burn, get rid of, throw away, hide books that were not a part of the propaganda. And his whole goal was those books should be preserved, right? Like, just because they don't align with these crazy ideals of the Nazis does not mean that they're not true. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So the point is, that was his best way, he thought, of protecting his family in these books. Now we jump back to Corinne. Corinne and her uncle ran this bookstore / library ordeal, and the Nazis are threatening to, you know, hurt her and burn the books. So she is constantly like hiding books. She complies a lot so that she's not seen as a threat. Her uncle has left and he's like far, far, far away. So they keep in communication every blue moon so that they can check in on each other. But for the most part, Corinne is just staying kind of low profile, you know, just a cutesy girl. But she's constantly trying to hide books. Now, Christian is always sent over to the bookstore, but eventually that has to close down. So he's always sent to her house to demand these books. But every time he comes over there, it's not what everyone on the outside thinks is going on. He's coming in and they develop a friendship, which Corinne is very suspicious of because she's like, how am I becoming friends with this Nazi man? Like, there's no way this is real, but yet he's such a kind person. So it challenges this idea of building friendships when you have different ideals and morals and values. However, she does not yet know that Christian is not who he says he is. So this is a journey about becoming friends on opposite sides of the coin, but then having to become teammates in this war-stricken time period in Paris, France, right? So that's just the backdrop. I don't really want to get too far into it because I feel like I'll accidentally just kind of spill the rest of the story. To a degree, I think you kind of know where this might go because this is a romance, but it was a really sweet story. So I had a lot of commentary about this book when I first finished it in my reading vlog. I had a lot to say, and you know, I do like the fact that this book touched on the fact that for Corinne, she really struggled with the fact that like she's becoming friends with a guy that literally was sent to the house multiple times to continuously basically like invade her privacy and find books that were against the Nazi principles to steal them, right? But you know, his superiors would always be like, did you go get any more books? Were you able to scare her into getting more books today? And he'd be like, yeah, I totally did, dude. No, he didn't. Like, yes, he did. But she also realizes like the way he talks about certain books, he clearly knows what he's talking about opposing books. So clearly he must not be who he says he is. And so I appreciate the fact that though in her mind, she knew like what I see is he's supposed to be my enemy. What he's showing me is nothing that shows that he's my enemy. And so she's really battling between her heart and her mind of this man is supposed to be my enemy, but he's not acting like it. In fact, he's acting like my friend, and now we are becoming friends. But like, we can't show that we're becoming friends because we're supposed to be on opposite sides. But are we really on opposite sides? Like, it's a very challenging thing for Corinne, right? And so what I appreciate about that is how real that is, right? Like, I think it's okay to have, listen real closely when I say this, okay? Don't get this misconstrued. I think it's really important to have friends of differing beliefs because you can learn and grow. You can expand your knowledge. You can understand that there are multiple realities that coexist all at once. And you can just learn what other people's lives are like and be respectful and empathetic and compassionate towards these people, right? Cool. At the same time, there are harmful beliefs. There are harmful opinions that harm other groups of people. And I think that's where it's okay to draw a firm line between being friends with those people. And not even just friends, but I think it can be done with respect to a certain degree. I think it can be done with respect, but I think it's okay if in those moments where it's quite adamant and clear that certain beliefs are directly harmful, to your reality and your belief system, it's okay to take a step back and just not want to associate with said person. However, in this day and time, I think what we're struggling with, and this is about to be a small tangent, so just follow me here. What I think we struggle with is we want to have a story like Corinne and Christian, where, oh, despite our differences, we can still build a friendship. To a degree, yes, that should be the case in a lot of ways. What we're seeing now in our reality and in our world is that there is a lot of harm. There's a lot of harm, right? Like, we're adamantly seeing a lot of communities being directly targeted and harmed. Hi, it's Editing Imani from the future. I wanted to add a tidbit here. I'm talking about direct harm in marginalized communities. Oftentimes, we see that there are people trying to make a case for how they too are being harmed to evade responsibility for how they are contributing to the overall systemic problem of harming marginalized communities. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. I am only talking about those that are truly being directly harmed. Proceed. Not even on some I don't even know what the word is, but it's very direct and it's very apparent and it's very audacious that certain populations are being full-blown fingers pointed and saying, I'm trying to harm you. That's different, right? That is completely different. And I just want it to be said that when it came to this book, I loved the fact that Corinne challenged Christian and they were able to have discussion. And yes, okay, so we all know, because I just told y'all, Christian cosplayed as part of the Nazi party. He wasn't, okay? He wasn't. So I do think that helped them build rapport and build friendship, despite the fact that for Corinne, she does not have the knowledge yet, right? I think that helped her feel comfortable talking to him because they were able to be respectful of each other. They were able to have conversation and come to terms with the fact that, wow, we have some differences of opinion, but like at the baseline of it, we really don't. That can happen, right? That can happen in today's time. You can build rapport and friendships, maybe not even full-blown friendships, but you can build rapport with people that had a different reality than you, right? And, you know, their reality may have been shaped because of family origins, you know, of maybe where they lived, maybe their own direct experiences with certain people groups. Like, there are a lot of things that shape one's reality, right? And it can indeed be very different than yours. And it can shape two different realities that don't have anything to do with each other, don't align in any way, but do not cause harm to either person. What we are seeing now in the world is people groups being directly targeted and harmed. And that's where it gets sad, and that's where it gets a little scary. So while I'm talking about the fact that I appreciate this book taking the time to address differences, keep in mind that I understand that right now in the world, that's not what's happening. We're not able to have conversations about difference of opinions because this is bigger than difference of opinions now. It's way bigger, right? It's important to know the difference between direct harm and difference of opinion. And so I just urge everyone to use discernment in those moments of trying to figure out, is this really just difference of opinion and we can just sit and respect each other's difference of opinion, or am I being directly harmed? Because I will say, and this is not to offend anyone, so hopefully I'm not overstepping here when I say this, but when we have beliefs that we strongly believe in, I feel like we feel the need to defend it real bad, and we take it really hard when people don't align with us. And that's when we want to kind of remove ourselves from people. And I feel like sometimes, depending on the situation, that's doing a little too much, right? Like, okay, so I don't believe what you believe. Relax. We just have two different realities. But when someone says something directly hurtful, directly to you as a person, and basically saying your reality isn't true, then that's where we got a problem, right? When it's racism doesn't exist anymore, or, oh, that was an accident, he didn't mean to post that. Things like that, you know, like where it's like, but he, but she, but they meant what they said. There was nothing subliminal about it. There's nothing to, they literally meant what they said. So yes, I went off on a tangent, but what I have to say is that this book was beautiful. It was friendship turned into love, but the way it happened was, you know, being able to look beyond the differences and find the common ground and develop from there. And I think there's some beauty in that. There's a lot of beauty in that. And I think that's something I've gotten to experience in my own personal life. There's a lot of people in my life where maybe they came from different backgrounds than me, but we have a lot of common ground and we're able to have a solid friendship. And yeah, so I just think that we just have to be very careful, because there is a fine line between having difference of opinion and directly harming people. So that's all I have to say on that. Moving on to the next book. I finally read my first Kristen Hanna book. I know it took me forever, y'all. I've had this book in my possession for like 2.5 years, y'all. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book. I think I was a little intimidated because every time I saw this book getting reviewed, it was just like people were just like emotional wrecks after. So I was a little nervous because I was just like, dang, like this book put y'all through it. But hey, I see why. I finally read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I rated this one a solid 5 stars. No notes. No, okay, well, actually I have notes. But let me tell you something. I speechless. Like this was a masterpiece. If I recall correctly, this might become something, a movie or something in the future, but I swear to God, y'all, they better nail this movie, because this book is a masterpiece. I cannot wait to keep reading Kristen Hanna this year, because that lady can write a good book, okay? And I know this to be true because the way people have reacted to like The Women and The Four Winds, and I'm missing one right now, something with fireflies. Everyone has the same reactions that they did to The Nightingale. So I know I'm gonna love all of them. I already know, but The Nightingale just put that standard up to the clouds for me, because this book was fantastic, okay? It was another WW2 historical fic. Yes, I read 2 WW2 historical fics back to back. That was not the plan. It just kind of happened that way, okay? This book was, oh my gosh, it was so good. So this one also was in France. And it was about these 2 sisters, and basically, to make this long book short, it's about their own personal ways of trying to contribute to World War II in their own ways, right? Their own very creative ways. So we have Vianne and we have Isabel. Isabel is the younger sister. She's super rebellious, but she's also just a bombshell, okay? Like the girl is a baddie, okay? Like you can tell just by reading the book, she's a baddie. The way she's described, you know, she's a baddie. You can just envision very quickly. Sis was that girl, and she knew she was cool, but also she was hot-headed. She was quick. She was rebellious. She was impulsive, right? She was probably a fire sign. Let's be so for real. And she's a teenager, mind you, when we first meet Isabel, but she's looking for the ability to contribute. She's looking for her purpose, her place, right? She's struggling with that because she is, I think, 18, 19 by this point, but it's also like, there's a whole world war going on. You know, she's just like, just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't contribute. And everyone's like, well, I mean, you're not wrong, but also like, sis, you're 18. And she's like, okay, and it's like, okay, like she's just gonna be one of those, you feel me? Nevertheless, she joins the resistance, and she risks her life over and over and over and over and over again to save soldiers and to help them and to supply them with whatever they're needing. And she's doing this all within France, right? Or she starts off within France. She starts off with her sister. That's a whole ordeal. But eventually she does embark on the resistance and just helping get these soldiers. She climbs this mountain over and over and over again, going to Spain, going back to France. Like she was really a force to be reckoned with. And because she was so beautiful and young, she was very least suspecting, right? So she was able to use that charm and that beauty to help so many soldiers out. Now, Vianne, on the other hand, was able to help hide and school young children and protect them. She was able to provide shelter. I mean, Vianne really played that maternal role for a lot of people, but they also argued a lot, the sisters did, about what way was better per se. Not necessarily better, but they just kept arguing with each other. They already had a very tense relationship due to some family trauma that had happened. But, you know, Vianne wants to protect her sister. Her sister wants to find purpose. Vianne also wants to find purpose, but she wants to be safe about it. There's nothing safe about World War II. Like, it's a lot, you know, they're butting heads this whole book. And it gets to a point where you're just praying and hoping, like, look, I know y'all just don't agree, but dang, like y'all are risking y'all's lives during World War II. Like, please get it together. Like, y'all are sisters. Like, please. It's just like you are rooting for both of the sisters because they're both doing heroic things, but they're both just like arguing with each other. They're both confronting personal problems they have, their own heartbreaks, their own struggles that they're experiencing. I feel like I'm all over the place describing this book, but what I need you to understand is the story of these two sisters and all that they contributed to World War II and the way they kept putting their lives out there over and over and over again, and the way they just would kind of dance around the subject of the hurt that they were feeling from within, from each other, from other things that had happened in their life. And you're just like, okay, y'all could die at any moment in this book. Like, are y'all ever going to confront y'all's own problems with each other? And you know, like, yes, there's some romance in the book, but the real love story is the sisters of this book, right? Their story is the real love story. It's just this constant, tense, clutching your pearls moment because you're just like, tell her you love her. Tell her you love her. Tell her, like, just please tell her. Because it's just like every time you turn around, both of them are in perilous positions. And they would have fought or something would have happened or, you know, the other doesn't know where the other sister is. And it's just like, you're on pins and needles the whole time. Like, will they be okay? Will they ever find each other again? Okay, they found each other. Oh, but now they're apart again. Is this it? Oh my gosh, is this a chapter when? Like, you are just put through it the whole book. But it is a beautiful love story between these sisters. It's absolutely heart-wrenching, but it's a beautiful story between these sisters. And I understand now why the people react the way they do to The Nightingale. Because I should have done a reading vlog for this one. This one gave me the same, almost, very close, very, very close. This one gave me a very close feeling to the way The Yellow Wife in the House of Eve made me feel 2 years ago. Like, it's very close. That's why it instantly got a 5-star for me, because I was like, this is how I felt when I finished, kind of, sort of. This is how I felt when I finished those books. Like, that same feeling of just like, what? Yeah. I mean, masterpiece from beginning to end. Absolutely beautiful. I feel like that's gonna be a top 10 for 2026. I always read like a fantastic book at the top of the year and then like the rest of the year I'm just trying to see like what else is gonna be like a top 10, because like last year it was W.E.B. Du Bois, or Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. The year before that, I can't remember what was the year before that, but like I always just start at the top of the year with like a fantastic book, and the rest of the year I'm just like, let's see if something's gonna measure up. But I feel like The Nightingale is gonna be that book for me this year, where I'm just like, what's going to measure up to The Nightingale? Because that's one of the best books I've ever read, and I'm being so serious. So after reading back to back World War II historical fics, I then moved on to The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This book was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I gave it a 4.75 stars. This one does have some elements of historical fiction as well, but I would consider this more like an adventurous type of a book. I don't even know what other fictionary terms I can use here, but think more on the lines of like The Lost Bookshop, The Midnight Library, more on those lines a little bit. Like that's kind of the vibe, the aesthetic it gives. Though it is historical fic by some sort of a standard, I'm gonna put it more with like The Lost Bookshop, like books like that, The Midnight Library, things like that. And y'all know I love a good multiple timeline. So we have our present day timeline and our past timeline. So in our present day timeline, we have our main female character who, she was embarking on her journey to London. It was supposed to be a 10-year anniversary between her and her husband, but she recently found out the man cheated on her. So what does she do? She goes to London by herself, as she should. And she is, she's a historian by career. So she currently isn't working like in her career field, but like she's a historian. So she is going on these cool adventures in London where she's like unpacking the history and like doing things like that. Like, imagine if you're like a historical nerd type person, you're going to London. Like, you're gonna do all the historical nerdy things, right? The museums, the tours, things like that. That's what Caroline's doing. And she stumbles upon this little vial, and she's so confused about it because she's just like, a vial? Like, it looks pretty ancient, right? And so she realizes it must be something connected to something nearby. So she starts to do her research, and she realizes that this could have come from what is known as some apothecary, mysterious apothecary that may or may not have existed once before. It's treated like it's a myth, but what she's starting to learn is it was not a myth. That was real, okay? The apothecary truly was real. So we, in present-day London, are following Caroline through this deep dive of where was this apothecary, what was it about, what was the principle, what happened to it, who ran it, and there's a random vial here. Like, if it's been gone a million years, not literally, but you know, if it's been gone a long time, how was I able to find this random vial right here? Like, there's that. We also get to jump back in time to the past timeline of the actual apothecary being in full-blown business with the owner. Her name was Nella. Nessa? Hold on. It was Nella. Yeah. Nella's running this apothecary, and the principle of the apothecary is that it's actually a place where women who have been abused, have been hurt, have been mistreated by men come to her for these tinctures and potions and poisons, basically, that they can use to hurt/kill these horrible men in their life. And the reason it built the reputation that it built was because it is a secret. Like, it's not a secret that's an apothecary. There is a secret that Nella is able to help women, right? She's able to help women from these terrible positions that they find themselves in. The patriarchy is in full swing in 18th century London, okay? So of course, these women are quietly and secretly visiting this lady to free themselves from these horrible, horrible men in their life. So yeah, and Nella also ends up with this little 12-year-old girl who comes to her one day to get a potion as well, but quickly comes to like Nella and like the apothecary and wants to basically be her little apprentice. So in the past timeline, we're following Nella and this small 12-year-old girl as she's growing up, helping Nella with these potions and making these little contraptions, not contraptions. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? So she has this little minty. It's really cute, actually. And yeah, so we get to understand the history of the apothecary in real time, because we get to flash back to the past, and we're with Nella and the 12-year-old whose name also escapes me. Who was that 12-year-old? The point of the story is we have these two timelines, but they do end up merging as we get toward the middle, towards the end of the book. And it starts to get real twisted real quick. And it speeds up towards the end of the book. I think this would be a perfect sit at home and read during a readathon book. If you need a book that you should read during a readathon, which I should do a separate video on books I would recommend during a readathon. This is one I definitely would recommend because it is a relatively quick read. It is something where I did basically finish that book. In fact, I finished this book, I can't even remember, but I remember it was like a weekend day. So it had to have been a Friday or a Saturday. I think it was the original snow day back in January here in Georgia. Nevertheless, it's pretty quick. It's pretty cozy. I mean, all things considered, it is a very cozy book. It's a book that highlights the strength of a woman, that highlights the redemption from feeling like your life is in the hands of others. It was a really, really awesome book. It's definitely got that woman empowerment, that mystical feel to it, that slightly magical feeling where it's not like childish, cheesy magical, but like just the right amount of like pixie dust, if you will, in the book. Like it's a beautiful book. I like books like that, like The Lost Apothecary, The Lost Bookshop, The Midnight Library. There's another one I'm missing. There's another one. Oh my gosh. I can see the cover and maybe it'll come to me later. But like books like that, I love when there's just that right amount of magic in it that keeps it from feeling too cheesy, but like brings the book together, brings the lessons to life, right? Because Caroline is really in a state where, like I said, the girl was supposed to be on her 10-year wedding trip and she's by herself and she's having to realize like who she is and find strength in herself again and redeem herself, you know what I mean? But it's just the way these two timelines converge and the way the story of redemption is told is really beautiful. So I really highly would recommend this book. January was a historical fic kind of a month, y'all. I don't know what I was on, but I was just into it for the historical fic. I mean, by default, historical fic is like one of my favorite genres. So like, I'm not necessarily fully surprised, but also like the way I went back to back to back to back to back to back to back is crazy. Like, that is nuts. Like, I don't know what I was on, because I am a mood reader. So when I reflect back on what I read, I'm just like, what? Girl, you good? Anyways, the next book I read was Harlem Rhapsody by Victoria Christopher Murray, and I gave this one a 4.75 stars. Now, by default, it's a historical fic. It was a fantastic historical fic. Like, I absolutely love this book so much. If you want the drama, read this book, because this book was the drama, okay? It was a historical fic, but baby, it was the drama, okay? Like, I was clutching my pearls the whole book. It is the drama. In short, this book centers around our female main character, Jessie Fawcett, who was the first literary editor for the Negro magazine that W.E.B. Du Bois founded, called The Crisis. And so this is in the late 1910s into the 1920s. Basically, W.E.B. Du Bois brought her on. He already knew of her. He already had a relationship with her. He brought her in to be the literary editor. And once she's in this position, she's able to use her talents to get The Crisis really off the ground, even more than it already was. But not only that, she's able to scout out talent and help them pivot their careers. So we're introduced to people like Langston Hughes in this book, because she's helping him cultivate his poetry skills and encourage him and speak life into him and invest in him to help him become the Langston Hughes that we all know in history. However, a huge part of this book is talking about the fact that Miss Jessie Fawcett and W.E.B. Du Bois are lovers. And if you know, you know that W.E.B. Du Bois was indeed married to Miss Nina Du Bois. The drama. Yeah, child, Jessie was a side piece. All right, like she was the side piece, okay? Sucks, because man, I love Miss Jessie down. And here's the thing. The way the story is told, it holds the integrity of both W.E.B. Du Bois and Jessie Fawcett very well. And I think there's something very powerful and very skilled and very creative about how Victoria writes that she's able to do that. Because let's be so for real. Like, first of all, the age gap. I promise I'm not too terribly ageist when I say this, but like, this was like a glaringly obvious age gap. Like, W.E.B. Du Bois was way old enough to be Jessie's dad. So there's that. But for some reason, they have this bond and she just cannot seem to let go. And her mom is, her stepmom is aware that there's something going on there. But when she really realizes that, like, oh wait, hold on, you really are a homewrecker, her and her sister and her brother are just like, Jessie, girl, like, this is dangerous. Like, W.E.B. Du Bois is one of the faces of the Negro movement at this time, right? So you got to think about where we are. We're in the 1910s going into the 1920s, and W.E.B. Du Bois is traveling, speaking. He's going all over the place. We have the crisis. We have the NAACP. We have all these things going on, right? The start of the D9. Like, so many cool things are happening. So much evolution is happening for the Black community in this time. W.E.B. Du Bois is a humongous face right now. He is in it, okay? He is the face, he is the person, he is everything. So it's like, he is not a nobody, right? Like, W.E.B. Du Bois is not a nobody. And of course now in 2026, we really know that man was not a nobody, okay? He is a huge part of Black history, rightfully so. There's nothing but respect for W.E.B. Du Bois. However, with that, what her family is realizing in that present moment is that W.E.B. Du Bois truly is the face, and a huge face in this. And so it's just like, well, Jessie, your whole career is at stake because you're making an active choice to be messing around with a married man that the whole world knows. Like, if that were found out, your reputation, his reputation are going to be highly compromised, especially because as Black folk, you got to work twice as hard to what? I know you finished it out loud. So here's what I'm trying to say here. I am not excusing Jesse and WEB's behavior, okay? I think it's diabolical that they were in a full-blown affair, especially when they have this ginormous age gap, especially considering that both of them are so pivotal and so talented and so necessary to the development of Black history. But at the very same time, the very hard thing to grapple with is the fact that this affair is the reason a lot of things happened for the crisis and for the development of several smaller things that oftentimes get overlooked in Black history, some nuances like the cultivation of some literary giants. And I'm going to keep using Langston Hughes specifically as an example. That origin story, right? Like the small conversations about like just encouraging Langston to not give up, encouraging him to publish, encouraging him to just say, hey, I know it's rough. Jesse did that. And Jesse was only able to do that because W.E.B. Du Bois gave her the space to do that, to come to New York, to come to Harlem, right? So it's like, unfortunately, W.E.B. did open up a lot of doors for Jesse, and Jesse did use her status with W.E.B. to put some other people up and on and out there, like Langston Hughes. She was able to connect him with the proper resources to make sure he was properly developing as a poet, because everyone saw the raw talent that he had, which we now know he has. So it's just kind of like, you got to sit there and you gotta take it for what it is, right? Like, yes, terrible idea. Shouldn't have been sleeping with a married man, but also the partnership. And let's be very clear, like this book is well written where you do see that there truly was a real good professional relationship, because there were times where there was nothing personal going on between the two. It was strictly business. And you can tell that even on a business front, they worked very well together. They were able to put their heads together and get a lot done for the Black people. So we're not going to take that away from them. But it's also just like, Jesse, be so for real, girl. Like, you need to stand up, okay? Because what are you doing messing around with W.E.B. Du Bois, baby? It's not even like it's just a man. That's like a really well-known man, too. And so I just think this book does a really, really good job of honoring both of their legacies, but being very raw and honest about it, right? Like, okay, they're human. And that's something where I think it's okay to do, right? Like, we are not, nobody's perfect on this planet Earth, okay? And even for some people that we consider heroes and giants and pioneers in culture and in history, they were human too, and they made human mistakes, right? They didn't know that they were about to be in the history books way back when. They just thought they were doing something to help the Black people progress. So yes, they probably made some dumb mistakes where they probably could look back if they could and cringe and be like, yikes, that's awkward. Like, I did all these cool things and it's well known that like I cheated. Because in the case of W.E.B. Du Bois, it wasn't just Jesse. There were others. And so it's just kind of like, yikes, right? Like, you just want to cringe a little bit. And like, trust me, there was a lot of moments where I was just clutching my little pearls for dear life, okay? Because I was like, oh, Jesse girl, no, stop all that. No, please find someone your own age, a big. But at the same time, we cannot take away the fact that this relationship on a personal and professional level, it brought us some stuff. This is in no way condoning homewrecking, cheating, infidelity, side piece, and none of that, okay? I'm just stating it for what it is, that unfortunately and fortunately, that bond that W.E. and Jesse had, and their talent and their intellect, and putting those two brains together really did give us some amazing historical figures, such as Langston Hughes, Nella Larson. Like, Jesse is at the core of a lot of Black history, especially specific to Harlem in that Harlem Renaissance era, right? Like, I mean, she had an influence in the music. She had an influence in the art scene in general. So we cannot take away from what she did. We cannot take away from what W.E.B. did. And we cannot ignore the fact that they have a love story, right? But it's the drama. Like, we are on pins and needles the whole time, following these two around as they be sneaking off and stuff. But let me tell you something, this book was good, okay? Like, this was such a good book. 10 out of 10 recommend, especially during Black History Month. I definitely urge you to read it. Final book that I read for January was the second book in a natural series. This is a series I started like 3 years ago, to be quite honest with you. And this book specifically is called The Killer Instinct, or I think just Killer Instinct. Anyways, it's by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and it's a YA series. Again, I started it several years ago. I really liked book one. Sydney told me about it years ago when she first started reading again, and I read it too, and I was like, hey, this is kind of fun, kind of cool. Like, I like it. There are some YA books that actually really are intriguing to me. So I had it as a goal last year to finish up some series that I had started. This was one of them, but I never got around to finishing this one. So I made it an active point to try to at least get back into it. So I read book 2 on my Kindle, and I rated it a 4-star. I think I liked the first book more than the second book, but I did like the second book. I would be curious to know how I enjoy books 3 and 4 and just do a comparison of the whole series. But this one was really good. So it's got like a mystery thriller vibe to it. It is YA. It is highly fictional. It's very adventurous. It's super fast paced. It's following these teens that have these abilities and skills and talents that are just not natural at all, given either their family background or just their highly intellectual abilities that are just like beyond average. And they are put together. They are an undercover team. The FBI solve cold cases. And so this was just another cold case that they were solving, but there was a personal connection between one of the teens and the killer. And so the team is being right up under the FBI in secret to solve the case of a serial killer's copycat on the loose. So yeah, that's what that was. And I think it was a good book. Again, 4-star only because like I remember I really, really, really enjoyed the first book, and just comparing the two, I just was like, I like the first one more, but it wasn't bad at all. Again, I'd be curious to see how books 3 and 4 go. So we'll just see. But I mean, it was a really good book. So that is what I read in January. I will put my entire month's stats here if I did not say them in the beginning, because I don't recall that I said them in the beginning at all. Like my total number of books, my average rating, total number of pages I read, whatever is the case, it'll be here, child. Anyways, moving on to my February TBR, even though we're already in February, I will say I really haven't gotten a chance to read much this month. So I just finished today Twisted Love. I have that entire series. I've had that series for like 2 years, have not read it. I am pushing to finish that series this year. So we'll see how I feel about it as we continue. But I did read book 1 already. So obviously that'll be discussed in my February wrap up. I don't really know. Like, it's Black History Month, so I really want to read as much historical fic, Black books as possible. Maybe some memoirs. But again, I am a mood reader, so we just gonna see what the vibes are. Honestly, I don't have a current book at this moment in time. As of today, though, Sadika Johnson's newest book is now officially published and out there. So happy pub day to her. Again, she has been one of my favorite authors. I think I've said this like a million times on this channel, child. Like, she is one of my favorites. I love her real bad. She wrote 2 of my most favorite books, The House of Eve and The Yellow Wife. I've also read, she had a novella that followed The House of Eve. That name escapes me, but we had that I read. And I also read And There Was Me by her, which that was a hard book to get through. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. And I've enjoyed everything. So I'm very excited to read The Keepers of Lost Children, I do believe it's called. I have to go pick up the book. I had it pre-ordered. So whenever it's ready, I will have to go pick that up and we can read that one, hopefully this month. I do have the audiobook as well, so it'll be really cool to immersive read that one. But really and truly, we're just gonna kind of see what the vibes are. Like I said, this month started on a Sunday and it's just been a whirlwind. I have had a busy 9 days, okay? And this is February 10th. So I've had a busy 9 days to start off the year, or I keep saying year, to start off February, and it's been a lot. So I'm hoping that we'll at least get to read some good stuff this month, but we'll see what the vibes are. But I am most excited for Keepers of Lost Children by Sadika Johnson. As soon as I get that book, there will be signs. There will be signs. But yeah, guys, I'm glad we finally got to sit down and do our January wrap up. I know it took me a while. I'm sorry, but we did it. We got through it. If you guys have anything you want to share, add, talk about, comment here, talk about on Instagram, TikTok, I'm all over the place. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Follow me on all the things. They are in the description box below. And I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye, and happy Black History Month.